there was a point I was on Kimathi and I saw Tom. Tom is Kelvin's brother. He also died in the protests last year, June 25th. And
sorry.
Yeah, I remember him passing me, and he was running toward the tear gas. And I pull him and I'm like, please be careful. And he says to me, you know, Nerima, my brother died on this day. My brother died on this day last year. And I've had nothing, you know, in terms of even answers. And he looks at me and he says, I'm not afraid of death. If anything, I'll meet my brother. And I'm ready.
What?
And he was so sure of himself. He was so, I don't know the word. Thank you. There was just something that he just seemed very certain that this must be done. You know, my brother will not go unnoticed. My brother will not pass on. And what he came out for is unanswered. I keep telling people, it's growing. The numbers that we saw on Wednesday are larger than the numbers that we saw last year. And I think people are not realizing that this thing is growing. You are actually feeding it when you choose to ignore the real issue that they're bringing up. You're feeding it. And, you know, we're a country that we have a new constitution that didn't come up from a revolution. We have a constitution that was negotiated. When we are seeing countries where they choose to have a new constitution because they have been pushed to a corner and forced to rethink, and they say, how do we build ourselves again? That's how constitutions are built. But Kenya is a unique case, where even if he tries his best to remain in power, he will not remain in power. There's a difference between remaining in power and clinging to power.
Tell me.
Yeah, what we're witnessing is a cling to power. That means you are barely making it, even with all the instruments that you have access to. Barely. You are barely making it. And this is 2 years to go to an actual election. So remaining in power is when you know there's a dissatisfaction amongst your citizens, amongst the public. You know, you're well aware. So you have enough machinery to still instill fear, where you're monitoring, you're in control. There's a sense of control with remaining in power. When you're clinging to power, it's unpredictable. You could have control, the next minute you don't. You're never sure. You're constantly balancing on this tightrope. That's clinging to power, which is where Ruto is right now.
I'm so glad to have you on Richard Mwenja Exclusive, your only point of call on matters, political analysis, and governance at large here in Kenya and across the region. Welcome on board. I'm Richard Mwenja. Such a privilege to have you with us. And today, as usual, every Saturday, 7:30 p.m., I'm in the amazing company of Executive Director, Siasa Place, Madam Nerima Wako. She's been doing phenomenal work out here this week on the streets, especially on Wednesday. Nerima, you are here in one piece, finally.
In one piece. Yeah, Wednesday was something else. It was something else. Yeah, I have never seen anything like it.
It was you versus the police and the goons. How did you come out of it?
Protection everywhere. Even let me tell you, I think the one who kept me the most company that day was God. Like, vile nilikuwa naomba. And the tear gas and the beating. Juu walikuwa na kona watu. Like, they just chase you. We were basically stuck in CBD. And you know, people are like, oh, these are paid, Let me tell you, a lot of people walked into Tao. Me, I walked from Integrity, Apple, because they had locked it off. A lot of guys walked from Westy. They walked in, watu hapo Haile Selassie walikuwa wamefunga, they walked in. So everyone who was in town, I know people who walked from Adams Arcade, walitembea, because they were blocking people from entering.
No commercial protesters, organic protesters.
This was organic. These are people who love Kenya, and they were just like, I will make sure I make it to the center. Like the real, genuine people, they walked into town. Yeah.
It was amazing that you could even see people who are in their 70s, 80s show up in the street. Did you see that old man there?
I did. I did. I saw old people, parents, even at some point I was walking with Cherotich Sei, and there was a point where they, threw tear gas, and so she was running, and everyone would pass, especially young people. They would say, "Mother usikimbie, mother usikimbie." So there were even a point they were even surrounding us because of Chero. So
she's vulnerable.
Yeah, and so even that sense of community was there. In the beginning, you could see that these are people you don't even know their names, but there was so much trust of, let's work together, we're in this together, let's protect each other. That is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
To the boomers who would argue that for us, we shall support this revolution by sitting back in our homes, but just giving you the charge to go into the streets, what would you tell them? That they should join their fellow oldies come the next protest?
I think that, especially if it was the church in their cloaks, in their uniform.
They were there.
Yeah, they were there. If we could have even more of them coming out, we would have had a completely different scenario.
Not just Tony Kiama, the Reverend.
No.
We need several others.
We need several others. In fact, they were too absent. They could have been more. How the church has been so vocal leading up to the 25th, the expectation was for them to now show themselves on the ground, even if it's just we're just standing guard, because when they shut down the media, people are now using their phones. They were now updating real time what was going on. Even that was difficult, because there were even some moments, the only time we were able to update was when vitu zimetulia. Otherwise you're running. So you're not even recording anything as you're running. You're trying to look for cover. So I think that there are certain levels of respect that the police will give certain people. Like the press was not harassed. You saw them being able to maneuver and even sometimes being behind the police and all that. I feel that religious institutions would have received the same respect, and they would also bring another level of sanity to the ground. But now that it was a lot of young people unprotected, and then there was the goons, there were thieves, people are being mugged, it became really chaotic toward the evening of that day.
So your clarion call is, don't let the burden only at the doorstep of Bishop Muheria or one or two others clerics.
Yes, absolutely. They need to band together. They need to mean what they speak. They need to show up, not just speak up. I think that's the next level, because what people are asking for, the people who are genuinely there, it's justice, accountability. They want people who have lost their lives. They want people to be jailed because there are people who have been killed, who are innocent. They want answers. They refuse to repeat histories. Unajua, unasikia watu wakiongea bunge that, people have been dying. Even 2023, we lost 100 people. Even before that, I mean, we don't want to be a generation that sees people dying and we just say, it happens, and we move on. We don't want to move on. We don't want to normalize death, especially when it's people who are not coming out for political reasons. They are coming out because of basic issues. They are coming out because they are saying bad governance. They are coming out because they are saying a whole year has gone by and things are the same. They're coming out and saying, we have not forgotten, by the way, tunakumbuka. And they want these families to be compensated. And I felt really bad because, the families of victims, a lot of them were in Kimathi, hapo Java, walikuwa wamengoja tu. They wanted to present a petition that just basically calls on, Parliament to have a parliamentary inquest, accountability. How have these people died, and who can be charged for this, and how can families be compensated for this? That's all they wanted to do. But it became a fiasco outside, and now you're seeing how government bloggers are trying to politicize the situation.
So when you see Rex Masai's mother and parents of other victims of June 25th, 2024 protests being met by tear gas at a time when you say they were out there to petition the government that this is our petition, hear our cry, what do you think is the message this government is pushing down the throat of these parents of the victims of June 2024? So
I'm getting emotional because there was a point I was on Kimathi and I saw Tom. Tom is Kelvin's brother. He also died in the protests last year, June 25th. And I remember him passing me, and he was running toward the tear gas. And I pull him and I'm like, please be careful. And he says to me, you know, Nirima, my brother died on this day. My brother died on this day last year. And sad. I've had nothing, you know, in terms of even answers. And he looks at me and he says, I'm not afraid of death. If anything, I'll meet my brother. And I'm ready.
What?
And he was so sure of himself. He was so, I don't know the word. Thank you. There was just something that he just seemed very certain that this must be done. You know, my brother will not go unnoticed. My brother will not pass on. And what he came out for is unanswered.
He paid the ultimate sacrifice for this country.
He paid the ultimate sacrifice. These are the families that we're talking about, where they're dragged into this, where this will be a day they will never forget all of their lives. And those families, they have prayers even on the 26th in memory of who they lost in their family. So when you're seeing Rex Masai's mother coming out, she's coming out to the very danger that, you know, took her son away. And the mothers are saying, no more. We don't want this group of us to grow. We don't want any more young people losing their lives just because they're pushing for something that we believe is right. And for me, even though people are saying, oh, this is just, you know, stupid Gen Zs, they don't know what they're doing, what they're fighting for. And when they're being interviewed and, you know, many of them are saying we're fighting for our rights, I would rather a Gen Z is saying, I'm fighting for my rights than I'm fighting for a political leader.
Yeah.
I'm fighting because they said tunatokea. They're saying, I'm fighting for the Constitution of Kenya. That in itself is a shift in mentality that I don't think the political elite understand or they fathom. They still think that these people, they are being encouraged.
Yeah.
These people, they are being paid.
Blame has been taken at the doorstep of Gachagua and a few other Kikuyu politicians.
It has nothing to do with Gachagua. The same way they tried to blame him last year.
Or Ford Foundation.
They tried to blame Ford Foundation. Now they're over there grappling with, now who do we blame again for this? I mean, every year you're going to try and find someone to blame because these things are going to happen every year until we see change.
We are yet to see the mother of all protests?
We are yet to see. I keep telling people, it's growing. The numbers that we saw on Wednesday are larger than the numbers that we saw last year. And I think people are not realizing that this thing is growing. You are actually feeding it when you choose to ignore the real issue that they're bringing up. You're feeding it. And, you know, we're a country that we have a new constitution that didn't come up from a revolution. We have a constitution that was negotiated. When we are seeing countries where they choose to have a new constitution because they have been pushed to a corner and forced to rethink, and they say, how do we build ourselves again? That's how constitutions are built. But Kenya is a unique case. Kenya said, we need change. We don't want to get into a bloodbath. We don't want to get into a revolution. Let's negotiate change. Let's have a constitution. And then you have a challenge when that very constitution is being implemented by the problem of the country. the same leaders who are looting, the same leaders who galvanize around tribe are the ones who are supposed to implement a constitution that is one. Implement a constitution that pushes for progressive access to basic rights. These are the same people. It's not going to happen.
A butt of all jokes.
It's not going to happen. I mean, come on, we're seeing the result. Where young people who have grown up and seen this constitution, they love it, and they're now realizing, Allah, these people, they have no interest to implement it. What we're witnessing is the clash. It is a clash of titans, of people saying they want a constitution that works, and on this side of a minority saying we will have the constitution benefit us. A minority that watered it down, a minority that loved the status quo, a minority that wants things to remain the same, and a majority that wants things to change. So we have two sides of power. Power with money, power with influence, and then we have people power. It's the clash of the titans.
In the fullness of time, you certainly agree that people power will always outnumber
of course,
this other section and triumph over them.
It has always shown us that. So unless they begin to think, how do we, manage these energies in a way that is genuine, even if it's not 100%, at least 50%. In the last 1 year, we've not even seen 10%. We've not even seen 10%. That is the only way. So they need to stop with the chest thumping. They are not doing it. It's like you're saying the same things, but it's like they're hearing something different. They don't want to recognize what's being said. They'll come out and say, see, goons. You see, they're spoiling businesses. They are constantly thinking of spinning the story rather than dealing with the truth.
The ODM faction in the broad-based government claimed that they got into that arrangement to midwife the concern that the Gen Z raised to the government of today. But if you look at the events of Wednesday this week, and even the place of ODM itself in pronouncing itself on what happened in this country, and even where Raila Odinga was and his presumed silence about Wednesday, do you think this far is just mute of malice?
I find it very difficult to understand Raila at this moment because in one sentence he's able to double speak. He'll encourage, young people to come out, and then at the same speak, he will encourage what government is doing. It's like it's not very clear. And I'm seeing a battle of thoughts in terms of, I agree, but I want to say I agree, but fully, but not fully. So it's very unclear. And I think that ODM finds itself in a very tight spot where they are normally on the side of the people, and right now the people are saying, "Sisi, tuko hii side, uko wapi?"
And we can do without you.
Yeah.
Yet again, they have showed without Raila Odinga.
That must hurt. That must hurt. Do you know?
It hit a nerve?
It hit a nerve. Imagine someone who is used to calling public holidays. Let me take a sip of water.
That I'm the father in this house.
Annie, you're the one who you make holidays. You say, kesho hakuna mtu anaenda kazi, hakuna mtu anaenda shule, ni
Tuesday.
Madamando Tuesday.
Leo ni leo.
Gas, ilikuwa inaitwa nini? Tear gas nini? What was it called? But anyway. And then now, here comes something else. Without a person in the front. And they say, it's a holiday. And guys were like, hakuna holiday.
It will be a normal working day from the optics of Isaac Mwaura, government spokesperson. Was it a normal working day?
It was not a normal working day. Even you who knows, people when you walitokea, tuliona.
It was not a normal working day.
Streets were empty. Streets were empty. It was a holiday. Let me tell you. The number of young people I've been telling, I'm like, do you know what kind of win that is? That is a power shift. That is a power shift. I don't think, young people, a lot of them don't realize how powerful that was, that it actually became a holiday. And it didn't have a gazettement from the government. And it didn't have the endorsement from opposition, if opposition exists, because now they are the same. It didn't have. It was just people. People said it's a holiday, and it was a holiday. That politically is a power move, and it has shifted. It has shifted the Ruto Raila pact. It has shifted. And, you know, normally when you talk about people who are, you know, very, very political, they're always like, is there ever going to be someone who can call crowds like Rao? We have answered that question. We answered it on Wednesday. And he has lived to see it. That crowds can be called. That without Raila Odinga, Kenya has not lost an opportunity when it comes to championing for democracy. We can do without him. Yeah. Me, you know, if I was someone who was championing for that, and I see young people championing for that, I would feel like I can retire. Let me go to Bondo. Yeah, I can retire. I did it, you know? Like, look at that young generation. Let me hand over the baton. Hand over. Look at them doing it without me. I'm a proud father. I'm a father. Me, that's when I would be like, by the way, wacha niende nilale. I am ready for heaven now. The country is safe. Because this generation will not allow for the constitution to be mutilated and raped. The country is safe. I would feel safe. But instead, what kind of reaction are we seeing? Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former minister, often argues that the tragedy we are in as a country is as a result of building institutions of democracy around individuals. Now you're talking about Raila Odinga meeting this reality that Gen Z have realized we can't maneuver the space of democracy only upon your blessings. Do you think now that's should be our clarion call, the fire in our belly going forth, that democracy is in our hands? We don't have to depend on this or that individual. Absolutely. You know, the first word in the Constitution is "we the people." I think that a lot of young people are testing that. Who is we the people? Who is it? Who is the sovereignty of the people? What does sovereignty means? What does it mean when power belongs to the sovereignty of the people? We are testing it. And that is extremely powerful because you have the drafters of the Constitution. You put it there. Why did you put it there? The people shall. The people shall. Mandatory. Why did you put it there? See, you put it there for us to practice this. And for me, I think it's such a beautiful moment, especially now people want to live and breathe their right to basic needs. They want to. And when they're beginning to see that the institutions that are supposed to do that are not doing that for the people, they're questioning. When they're seeing that parliament has been bought, when they're seeing their representatives, you know, they're not speaking on their behalf, and they're looking in the Constitution like, now what happens? What happens when that occurs? And you're being told, recall. Alafu, where's recall? Because now IBC is non-existent even till now. Or an extension of this or that person in power. Yeah. And we know that it's also captured. So you're beginning to realize, so it's telling me, okay, my representative, it's my representative who's not working. How do I remove them? Then you realize, I can't remove them. Now what do I do? It's basically bringing about scenarios that was not quite envisioned. You know, the Constitution was built upon people who actually want to implement it. There's nothing in the back for answers. What happens when people in power don't want to implement it? What do we do? The worst case scenarios. Worst case scenarios are not in that Constitution. We're building them as we go. So when you're seeing large crowds of young people coming out, we're building those scenarios. Now, Katiba, when you have leaders who don't want to implement it, Ebu answers what happens here. It doesn't have. For someone who's been in the corridors of justice for a long time, I'm talking about Deputy Speaker, National Assembly, Gladys Bosholei, who is now out here after the June 25th protest, accusing CJ Emeritus David Maraga of being someone actively within government pension, but at the same time is on the streets with the Gen Zs. Do you think that is so low and unfortunate of Gladys Bosholei taking concern with Maraga being on the street, while at the same time actively benefiting from the government that is paying his pension? It is so unfortunate that someone who actually has a brilliant mind would utter such words in Parliament. You have such a brief moment to speak, and then you want to use those minutes to speak on garbage. What a waste. What a waste of breath, what a waste of voice. CJ has every right to be on the street if he wants to. CJ has every right, when he feels that what's going on in the country is not right, he should show up.
And he has a right to his pension.
He has a right to his pension. He's done his work. He's retired. So now you want to take away someone's work. You want to take it away for what? Someone who has worked hard, served their term, completed their term, deserves that pension. You have no right to strip it off of them and tell them, sasa umemaliza kazi yako, kaa hapo kwa kona, na usiongee juu ya siasa. You can't do that.
And if you dare do that, we're going to withdraw your security or get off some parts.
That is a baseless threat, and it is petty. It is complete pettiness. In fact, it shows us the kind of government we have. Extremely petty. It's like, oh, because we don't agree, nyef, 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 I'm going to take this from you.
A disgrace to woman leadership?
It's a disgrace. Not even woman leadership, it's all leadership. Some of the conversations that I had in parliament is a disgrace. They shouldn't even be allowed to speak. It's a disgrace. And I hope the Kenyan people are watching keenly. You do not stop being a Kenyan citizen. Just because you're retired, you do not stop being a Kenyan citizen. You should be concerned about what's going on in your country on a daily basis, especially individuals who have held such high positions such as that. When at a moment, CJ was the third most influential person in the country, following, when he was CJ. Such individuals, we want to hear what they think. We want to know what their thoughts are on issues, not for them to sit in silence and be scared. No, this is the moment they come out. We need to see voices that are sane, voices that are different. We cannot have the entire government saying the same thing, even when it's wrong. This is when we need to see and recognize people who have a backbone, who are strong enough to speak truth, even though they don't agree with their party leader. This is the moment. We need people with backbone, especially where, not just our country, where the globe is going. We cannot have weak people. We cannot have weak people in leadership.
We have seen CJ Emeritus William Tunga being met with intimidation at some point when calling for accountability. Now we are seeing CJ David Maraga. And you'd wonder, is it that people like Gladys Boschole or even the president himself are not aware of the fact that at some point they'll be out of power? Power is transient. And this precedent that they are setting is a dangerous one that could also meet them at some point.
This is the thing. They believe truly, honestly, that they'll be in power forever, which is hilarious. Because, our constitution is very, very clear. There's nobody who can be in power forever. There's nobody. And even someone like Boschole, it's CJ William Tunga who announced that she has, scandals linked to her.
Yeah.
And so the audacity of impunity in our country, where people who have skeletons in their closet feel that they have the audacity to talk about what's right or wrong.
The moral high ground to call out the mess.
In fact, if anything, as soon as they open their mouths, we should just put off the TV and mute it until they're done speaking. And we start judging people on morality, their track records. Only people with ethics and track records they can prove are people we should listen to right now. The rest are just lies, blatant lies and noise. This is not a time for us to listen to noise. And it just feels like our house is being violated. It feels like it, where people can come say anything, even under oath. They don't take it seriously. Yeah.
Milima Wako hit her head against the wall.
Can you imagine?
Several times.
And then for us to see under CCTV, man, this guy, he died in cold blood. He was murdered. He was murdered. And we want to treat his life as if let's just brush it under the carpet. This is something we can fix. No.
So the claim that maybe our parliament has now been rendered a theatre of the absurd, like what Gachagua said a while back, there could be an ounce of truth in that. If the events of what's happening in Kenya are anything to go by with regards to human rights violation.
And you know what? That's true, because you're also dealing with a generation that, man, they are DCI detectives themselves.
Their own Interpol. NIS within themselves.
through pictures. They can find locations and names.
Even your mother's home.
Can you imagine? They are dealing with a generation that is like, information is power. And they are willing to use their free time. They will make time to investigate and find information. However
much you shut KTN or NTV.
Yeah, they will find there are different ways of doing that. They're like, okay, okay. Umeamua, okay, pia sisi tuko na live.
We are our own media house.
We have our own media.
And we have Larry Mado.
We will communicate. And I love what Larry Mado posted. He said, my job is not to show Africa in good light. It's to report fact. I was like, yes.
Yeah, and Buddy says you should also go to report the same about Congo. Why are you obsessed with Kenya? Painting it negatively out there. And C.S. Mukomen also say there's an obsession by some reporters to paint their own country negatively. Of course, this was interpreted as a direct jab on Larry Mado. Was Larry Mado supposed to deodorize what's happening in Kenya in the first place, Nerima?
No, he was doing his job, which is journalism, and your job is to you're objective. So you're there, you're reporting exactly what you're seeing. And I'm glad that Larry is there. It's really, really important. And you see government pushing back. I think I don't know if it was his real account where Moses Kuria was like, they now lost a business since some company has chosen to shut down because of things that are happening in the country.
It was his official account.
But you know, it ended with, at least I've given them a job as gardeners. You saw that?
I did.
I am like, how immature of you. Very immature.
Very mature is the word?
Very mature for you to say that, because you have completely refused to listen to why the public is angry, and now you want to victimize. Actually, we're watching gaslighting. Now you want to come and blame the same people who are angry about just no accountability in governance and tell them, it's your fault you don't have a job. It's your fault. Really? Really?
Utadu?
Yeah, that is immature. It's petty.
If you look at the government going to the level of ordering the shutdown of some media stations who are live streaming the protest on the streets, it only raises one question. If it can go to that level, so what happens in 2027 in the event that William Ruto doesn't enjoy the will of the people? Do you think he's going to go to the extent of overturning that will of the people, say, by even now declaring a total shutdown? Because those are the fears that are going to be there. We are seeing a president who might go to whatever level to remain in power.
You know, even if he tries his best to remain in power, he will not remain in power. There's a difference between remaining in power and clinging to power.
Tell me.
Yeah. What we're witnessing is a cling to power. That means you are barely making it, even with all the instruments that you have access to. Barely. You are barely making it. And this is 2 years to go to an actual election. So remaining in power is when you know there's a dissatisfaction amongst your citizens, amongst the public. You know, you're well aware. So you have enough machinery to still instill fear, where you're monitoring, you're in control. There's a sense of control with remaining in power. When you're clinging to power, it's unpredictable. You could have control, the next minute you don't. You're never sure. You're constantly balancing on this tightrope. That's clinging to power, which is where Ruto is right now. So he might be out here speaking as though he's remaining in power, but in actuality, he's clinging to power. He doesn't have power. He's clinging to it. He's hoping that he will remain. And this is a very, very tiring place to be. Very tiring. Because you're constantly evaluating your relationships from the political leaders to the various institutions, because you need some support from religious institutions. So you're constantly going back and checking on that relationship. Is it okay? Please tone down. Are we okay? And then now after you're done over there, you think you fixed it. There's another fire over here with political leaders. Are we okay?
You're running helter-skelter.
Everywhere. Kindiki, go talk to people. Are we okay? Like you are constantly on relationships. You don't even have time.
Take for them development, then they shut up.
Yeah, you don't even have time to focus on legacy. You don't even have time to focus on your manifesto. You don't even have time. That, my friend, is an exhausting seat to be in. It doesn't even feel rewarding. Even if you're somebody who grabs and grabs and grabs the amount of wealth you grab, it doesn't even feel satisfying. It doesn't. Because everywhere you go, you're wondering, am I going to be heckled today? Am I going to be chased today? Is someone going to say something today? Every day, imagine waking up like that.
Nikijenga hapa nyumba itasalimiwa, itachomwa.
Imagine waking up like that every day. That's clinging.
That is clinging.
That's clinging.
Nirima, if you look at the video, those Gen Zs, majority of them were women, calling out on Larry Mado, usituache, ukitoka hapa si tunapigwa risasi. And would that now make you send an invitation to actually international media to be even more present anytime we are walking through such murky waters? In the sense that by them portraying what Kenya is happening, maybe we can now control the situation, we don't lose more lives.
It is. Even with international media, it's actually calling on international institutions. Remember, this is a country that's on the table to be the headquarters of UN. How can UN sit in a country that's violating human rights? It's actually blown several issues to the fore. In terms of even Kenya. Kenya was supposed to sit on the Human Rights Council. A country that sits on the Human Rights Council, and then the world is watching Kenya violate human rights.
Or deal with RSF, arms dealing.
Can you imagine? The world is watching as, Kenyan fund, taxes are paying for ammunition being used in Sudan. We're watching. So what's going to end up happening is you're probably going to see a lot of cases going to places like ICC, going to institutions that deal with human rights and violations, various offices. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to make the missions here in Kenya uncomfortable. Remember, right before Wednesday, there's a statement that the various embassies released.
True.
They did. And, they talked about, yes, Kenyans have the right, let them protest peacefully, da-da-da. Because now, last year, they were silent.
Yeah. You saw Meg Whitman. What met her?
People were so ready for her to go.
And they jubilated at her exit.
Yeah, they were. They did. But, even for Meg, she still has some biasharas here in Kenya. Yeah, she still travels in and out of Kenya.
Her handwriting is in town?
She still sits on boards of certain things. She does.
Most of these foreign envoys to Kenya are your friends by virtue of your activism journey in Nerima. And some would argue, as Kenya, there was a time whereby foreign envoys to Kenya really stood high on principles that serve the people of Kenya at large. But nowadays, do you feel that they are more into political correctness rather than really saying, at the end of the day, we have to protect universal rights in this country where we are envoys in?
I feel that their technique has changed. I feel in the past, we are used to seeing even, ambassadors being vocal about situations in Kenya and having whole pressers to do that. They are almost invisible. There was a point where you would see Godek and you would know who he is,
Ranabaga.
Yeah!
Mention it.
Who is the US ambassador today? You don't know.
You can barely tell.
You can barely tell.
Or I can only know the first name, not even the second.
Exactly. And the reason is also the kind of mechanisms they're using. They use a lot of backdoor diplomacy where they'll say, we're talking to people in government, we hear you, don't worry, we're having conversations with them. We are not involved, visibly as it used to be. And there's good and bad with that, where one, interference. They don't want to appear that they're interfering too much with Kenya's business. And also, in a sense, that's something that is extremely important because we're our own people. We should be able to deal with our situations ourselves. But also their own countries are going through their own turmoils. We would not say that Europe is where it used to be, even in terms of stability. They're also dealing with their own situations in terms of their elections and the shifts of right wing and their stance on immigration, their relationships with the world. A lot of them are looking at Russia. They're afraid of Russia, what Russia is doing to Ukraine. People who are peaceful countries with barely any defense are now putting a lot of resource toward defense because they don't want to be attacked by Russia. So, I mean, they have a lot of their own problems, right? And so I would say that their tactics have changed, where they're like, okay, we want to be involved, we see what's going on is wrong, but we're not going to take a strong stance in it, be visible about it, because we also don't want to be kicked out of the country. We don't want to start a whole spat between countries when our own countries are having their own spats with each other. And I'd say this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for Kenya's government to say, well, okay, we have it under control. We will manage the situation on our own. But unfortunately, Kenya is struggling to be on the side of its people. The government seem to be at loggerheads with people. And unfortunately, I think it's the advice that, you know, they're receiving, or also they're used to handling things a certain way, but they are shocked about the reaction. They're like, you know, if we just create propaganda, let's create a narrative, Wakenya wataamini. And Kenyans are like, no.
Let's create a WhatsApp group and saying you're going to be met by goons should you go to the streets.
That thing disappointed me. That thing disappointed me.
You saw names of people you know?
Oh, I was so disappointed with seeing Medieval. I'm not going to lie. I was disappointed. You
were deflated?
Yeah. I was. And then a part of me was like, anyway. But everyone who's in this government, it seems they have that streak.
Let alone her being the daughter of a bishop.
Yeah.
It means nothing.
No, that disappointed me. It did. It did. It did. But you know what? Humans are humans. So...
So even when you see a litany of prayers being done from State House, intercessors walking there in day after day praying for the country, you believe that is more hypocritical if we're not going to change tact from the highest office in the land?
Yes, it is. It is hypocritical. And right now we are beginning to see the people who are standing on the right side of history. There's going to be a lot of new voters coming in, and people are assuming they're going to be voting the same. And I tell people, you know, we're used to seeing an election where rural communities come out in numbers. What we are witnessing is urban communities coming out in numbers. The ones who normally, ati leo tunapiga kura, mimi nitakaa tu nyumbani, wacha ni Netflix na chill. That group is going to be involved. And I don't think this political elite knows how to deal with that middle group. That middle group, ndo wameamka. They're like, no, where our country is going, business is struggling. I'm struggling to make ends meet. I can barely afford to take my kids to school. I barely understand CBC. I refuse to sit on the sidelines. They don't know how to deal with that group. And that group is going to be a large number.
That group is going to be a large number. Nerima Wako, when now you hear Interior CS, Kipchumba Murkomen issue a statement and say we're gonna, what happened on June 25th? It was terrorism disguised as dissent. And they're going to go to whatever level to make sure it doesn't happen again. How would you even render the conduct of Murkomen this with regards to his docket and pronunciation when it comes to such critical times?
What we're seeing is they're trying to connect dots or create dots. Actually, they're trying to create dots to build blame. The same way when they removed Gachagua last year. It was around, he's the one who, you know, created this rebel group they were planning to overthrow. And then, you know, Ford 16 were involved. And then quickly it changed to no. There are corruption cases, there are charges of corruption.
Also, he was a lone voice, was not speaking much about government agenda and successes.
And he's tribal and only thinks about
a government of scapegoats.
Yes. And then they remove him. Then they're like, man, that didn't work. Now that he's outside, he's even more of a nuisance. So what do? We now need to find another situation, another scenario to blame him for. What they're doing is try to create a scenario to blame Gachagua. That it's written everywhere.
That June 25th was a Kikuyu affair.
Yeah, you're already seeing you're already seeing the writing on the wall. They're now saying, oh, it's Kikuyus, and now they've been paid, and now they're the ones who are creating this chaos around us.
Kikuyu entitlement.
Yes, that's what we're seeing. And a lot of Kenyans were seeing right through it. We're seeing right through it because when, government bloggers, that was the first thing they started to talk about. It was only from their narrative. And even the posters that are coming out from propaganda, we can see right through it. And so they're going to try and blame. So what's fascinating is when Murkomen is here talking about it was a terrorist attack and it was a terrorism affair.
Disguised under dissent.
Yeah, disguised as a dissent. You're seeing a lot of young people who are in the protests coming under that timeline and sharing their videos like, am I a terrorist?
Yeah. Mimi ni Al-Shabaab.
Mimi. As you're seeing
I am not Mongiki.
Skipping through town, dancing in town, jumping over tires.
Playing football. Terrorists don't do that, Nerima, do they?
No, they don't. And terrorists to what agenda? Because even when you're seeing blatantly they are creating this narrative of they have now, robbed our shops, they've robbed everything. The advice I would give government, these demonstrations are not going to stop, especially from the genuine Gen Z, because unfortunately we lost more people on Wednesday.
Sadly.
And there are still people who are missing, who we are not sure whether they're going to make it home. We don't know where they are. And this is going to anger the Kenyan people even more. Frankly speaking, Karaoke, let's be honest, he died. Like, you cannot live like that.
Clinically dead as we speak.
Clinically dead. Yeah, you cannot live like that. And government just doesn't want to say the truth about the situation.
Shut up as long as Talam is in remand. We're already doing justice.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough. And you're going to see more and more of these triggers, breeding room for these demonstrations. The advice I'd give them, open up Uhuru Park. Stop fencing it. If running through town is chaotic and it's causing burglary because goons are being sent by political leaders, give people room to sit.
And don't put razor wires.
Don't put razor wires. Give people room to sit. To demonstrate in peace. They are not moving anywhere. They are not going and rummaging through people's businesses, because as they walk through town peacefully, it's calling on goons to come and break into people's stalls. Give people Uhuru Park.
Facilitate. Don't suppress.
Don't suppress. Remove the fence. Let people gather there and sit there for as long as they want. Give them a place to demonstrate. That's it. They don't have to move.
Don't try playing legislation around national assemblies. How are we going to tame it?
No, it's simple. Give them a place to sit. You won't even have to waste your tear gas, because they'll be sitting in one place. You won't have to tear gas people. Let people sit where they want to sit. And there are countries that provide for these spaces. But you took ours away. You took Freedom Corner away. So where do you expect people to go? You leave them in the middle of the road. People want to demonstrate. They have every right to do that. Then give them the room to do that. Open up Uhuru Park, let people sit. You win, we win. Business continues, no interference. People are able to gather, people are able to commune, they're able to send a statement. We all win. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be threatening people with batons and tear gas and water cannons. You've had that water when it comes out in a
bit
acid.
itchy.
Yeah. You just hear like, shh, like, come on.
Human rights defenders are even concerned that maybe there could be doses of biological hazards being used.
Exactly. Because even a colleague of mine who, I think she was saying how she was coming from home, there was so much tear gas through the night, she was still sneezing and coughing the next day. Not even the protests of Wednesday, the protests of the previous week.
Yeah.
I went to town the next day, people were wearing masks size Zaimenti because there was still tear gas in the air. It was still like a cloud of tear gas. And let me tell you, on Wednesday, the tear gas was so much. I don't know what that is doing to people's lungs.
Respiratory.
Yeah, I don't know. So now we're wasting. Like, let us, and most of that tear gas, by the way, they're using is expired. So we don't even know what effect it's having on people who are coming to work the next day. Because you want to harm the protesters, you're harming now people who are coming to work the next day. You don't know the number of people it's affecting.
A government at war with its children, with its future.
With its future. That is a simple solution where everyone can be happy. Just give people room. Yeah.
Let me have your thoughts, Nerima Wako, on this increasingly sort of name calling from the government in the face of dissent. Last year, during the 2024 June protest, we were labeled as faceless anarchists. A little later on, we were labeled digital wankers. Now, Murkomen has argued that these were terrorists in the streets, disguising as peaceful protesters. Do you feel there's going to be dampening of spirit upon further name calling from government?
No, they will not be, because history has shown us that way. Like, even Mau Mau, what were they called? So they were called terrorists as well. I mean, history shows us that...
During Kanu days, there were those who were labeled kwekwe kwa shamba ya Moi, waondolewe.
Exactly. So the labeling will continue. History has shown us.
So Nerima started as a faceless anarchist, became a digital wanker, now graduated to a terrorist.
We are terrorists. We are terrorists.
Next, you're going to be a suicide bomber.
We are terrorists. Yes, we are. We are here. Mwenja, I'm telling you, the creativity hata iko.
Taking rhinos from Uru Park to the CBD.
Imagine.
And talking to Dedan Kimathi, the statue of Dedan Kimathi.
The statue of Dedan Kimathi.
Give us your spirit, Father.
Can you imagine? Those are the terrorists we're dealing with. People, me, by the way, ni sawa tu.
I saw some Gen Zs going and masking our heroes, the statue of Dedan Kimathi, where they are donning them with masks. You are our hero, we have to protect you from tear gas.
From tear gas?
Yeah. You are the people we owe our allegiance to.
Hiyo tear gas ilikuwa mingi. Hata huwezi fungua macho. Hey!
Almost finally, Nerima Wako. You would have imagined that when we saw some sort of breakaways when it comes to frontliners of last year's Gen Z protests, that maybe now this was a revolution that was going to die a natural death. I'm talking about now Kasmuel Makouri joining ODM. Now we are seeing Morara Kebaso saying, I've bowed out of national politics, it's just too much for me. Does this speak to individuals who've been consumed by the revolution, or even in the first place, they never believed in it?
But did Morara come out?
He wasn't there.
Yeah, that was wise of him to resign before Wednesday. Because I think he was saying, hey, Miss Iwezi, enda kwa street.
Makouri said, I am with you, much as I'm miles away.
Yeah, him acoustic too. So at least that one. But you know what makes me happy about this situation is people were like, I was in so many rooms where people were like, oh, this thing is dead. Oh, look at the leaders. Oh, it's confused. Only for it to grow bigger.
A chase after the winds.
I was like, you see?
Without Ford Foundation, it is dead. Oh, Uhuru Kenyatta.
It's dead. Hey, now look at your leaders. Now look. Here it is again, without them. That is so powerful. For me, they're just like, they just don't know how to deal with this monster. They don't know how to deal with it. And you know what? The point that they are missing, that's right in front of their faces, is the real strong frontliners are women.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Wait.
Back in time, we would only point at Charity Ngilu or Martha Karua or Phoebe Asio maybe.
Women. acha nikwambie.
To what do you owe this new awakening among women in Kenya?
It is women. Mimi, like, even on Wednesday, there were points me I was hiding. And it was the women who were like, toka. It was women.
Unajificha kama wewe ni mwanaume?
Yeah. I was like, hey. This spirit that has descended in our women, may it continue to thrive. May it continue to thrive. It is women. I saw a woman, by the way, alikuwa amevaa her sneakers, alikuwa amevaa socks paka hapa, and like, you know, New Balance shoes, na amekuwa amevaa tights and a grey shirt.
Sure.
Alafu amebeba a bag, like she had just come shopping. I don't know from which shop which was open. And then they were throwing tear gas and everything, and she was just standing in the middle of the street. In fact, she just drank her water. Endelea! Imagine, they didn't even come and pick her. This woman was crazy. I was even like, guy, she better not come and stand near us. She just stood there alone. She was like, tumechoka na nyinyi. Kama unataka kuniua ua.
Enough is enough.
Enough. And she just had her hair in a bun. She had braids, the brown. And she was just like, by the way, I'm not afraid. They're women. And the fact that they have remained steady and at the forefront, I don't think this regime knows how to deal with them. But they are the powerhouse. Man, they are the powerhouse. And let me tell you something. One thing, Mwenja. Let me tell you something about real terrorist groups. Let me tell you something about Al-Shabaab. Once they recruit women, you never see women going back into the community. Aye. You know that idea of, oh, our son amejoin Al-Shabaab, nini. Now he's excommunicated, then they rehabilitate them, then they bring them back into... Do you know it's Muslim men? Think about it. Even statistics will show you. Once women join Al-Shabaab, they never leave. They
die with the cause.
They die with the cause. Let me tell you, there's a reason Gaddafi only had women in his security. Let me tell you.
You're talking about this new breed of women in Kenya who are so courageous and defiant because they believe in the greater good for the masses, not just for themselves.
Yeah.
So what is the message on the wall when Karen Nyamu sees what's happening? Fellow women, Shakira Wafula, Nerima Wako, and a host of others even Turkana showing up. But all she can do is saying, it's gonna fade off.
It will not. Let me tell you, these are women who have chosen to pick a different path. And they have seen the kind of institutions that exist. You have to pass through a man to give you your position. You have to pass through a man.
Patronage.
To give you a nomination. These are women who are defiant enough to say no. I will go by myself. And they are young and they are many. Me, by the way, that is the one aspect that gives me so much joy and encouragement when I see baddies in town. I'm just like, yes, this is it. This is the part government will never handle because it has never happened before and they don't know how to handle. Because we're used to erasing women from history. Yeah.
Or just preserving a footnote for them.
Yeah.
Reserving that.
Yeah. Even with, you know, the fight for land, women were very involved. In fact, they're the ones who are bringing guns.
And NIS officers then.
Yes.
Intelligence officers.
Intelligence and food. They're the ones who are risking it all to make sure they were near colonizers and going back. That was the riskiest job. But then we don't hear them in history. Now, we will rewrite history. Me, this is the part, June 25th. We must speak loudly about how women are involved. They're in the front line. And it saddens me when you see the cases of women being raped on their way back home. Because it is such a danger for women to come out and speak for country. By the time they do that, they are putting themselves at another level of risk that men will never have. That men will never have.
All right. Finally, Nerima, we're talking about we want new change to come our way as the Gen Z, as the youthful constituent of this country. But then again, make me understand this. Is having youth leaders enough, or character should be their guiding light, should be our guiding light, even when we want youths to be our leaders?
Character. That's what matters. I don't care what your age is. The same way we saw a lot of young people but different ages on the streets, it's character. Because you can be young and you think and act like an old person. That's not what we need. And over there I'm talking about Morara. That's not what we need. So we definitely need change and people who are of integrity, principle, and rule of law. We must change that for our country. Well,
very finally, Nerima wako now. There are many of us, many out there who are watching us today on this particular program, and they may want to have Nerima give a word to our president today, following what has happened in this country for the last few days, or even since he took power. What's your word to President Ruto today as we wrap up the show?
It will happen again.
It's coming?
It will happen again.
It's in the pipeline?
Yeah. It's as simple as that. If you continue to react the way that you're doing, it will happen again. It's as simple as that.
Does he stand a chance to meet his Damascus moment, see the light and turn his ways when it comes to leadership?
Unfortunately, no. Because it means that he must humble himself and actually listen and actually be a servant leader.
Is that a tall order for him from your lenses?
It's a very tall order for him. It's a very tall order. Very. I've just told you that the people at the front line are young women. Can you imagine him listening to young women? Yeah? No.
Maybe he's going to bring another round of town hall meetings like he did last year after the June 24th
We don't
protest.
want to talk.
You don't want manufactured town halls?
No, we just want to see action. We don't need to talk. Talking. Tulimaliza kitambo sana. We don't need talking. We don't need another commission. We don't need another report.
Or a task force.
We don't need.
Walk the talk.
Just walk the talk. Be courageous enough to walk the talk and mean it. Because you have people who are watching you. I don't know. Will it be simple for him to walk the talk? Has he ever walked the talk? Have you ever seen him walk the talk? Can you name a situation
You're putting me in a tight spot.
So I'm asking you. Have you seen him walk the talk somewhere?
Barely.
Okay. The only thing that he has said that he was going to do from a young age, and that was when he was in Kanu in the 90s, was be president. That one he walked the talk. There's nothing else.
All right, Nerima, today I particularly chose to don the Kenyan flag because I'm truly proud of what the Gen Z communicated, and any other genre that showed up on the streets on Wednesday. I believe in change. I'm for change myself. And today I would give my flowers to everyone who showed up. And even those who couldn't show up because maybe they are disabled in one way or the other, or able differently, maybe they're on their wheelchairs, I still give my flowers to them as long as they were for change. For you, do you have probably 1, 2 people that you want to say, thank you, you are my true hero today?
The same, because showing up on Wednesday, it took another level of bravado. Like you had to just pass through barriers to get to even CBD. And there were a number of people who would have loved to make it, but were trapped. So it's to those who hold the Kenya flag high, and we must sing our national anthem every day because it encourages us to do what we are doing. We must respect Kenya.
Before we sing Jumuiya Yetu, we first sing the national anthem.
The national anthem.
Then you go to Jumuiya Yetu with Mama Suluhu and the rest.
Who was that? Zuchu. Ama she was performing and then she tried to say Tano Tena. And people, hey, Tanzanians, they're learning. Karibu sana. Welcome. Welcome. We are happy to mentor you. Yeah.
But your flowers go to everyone who showed up.
Yeah.
And those who still believe in change.
Absolutely. And the families, for the families to be involved.
Yeah.
Mbona unacheka?
No, I have remembered something about the 2 million shillings.
Imagine. Okay.
Did you go for the eulogy shoot, by the way, before you showed up for the streets?
No.
Gen Zs were like, I'm going to die for my country if that's the price I have to pay. I've already booked a slot at this or that funeral home.
I actually saw a mortician saying she was receiving
Anne
money.
Mwagangi.
Yeah.
Reserve me that corner.
She was receiving money for real.
Yeah.
Do you know it is a very scary thing when people are not afraid of death?
Amina Rabar Abdi went for eulogy shoot.
Yeah, I saw that.
Very openly, and many, including our very own Ryan and Okini.
Oh, Ryan went?
Yeah, I have to die for this country if that's what it takes.
Wow, that is a statement. Yeah, that's a powerful statement.
I wonder what your son told you at the end of the day on Wednesday. Seeing you on the streets, tear gas coming back with bloodshot eyes.
He has no idea what's going on. My son is 4. No idea. Me in the house. Hey. I'm just mom. Like,
and it ends at that.
It ends at that.
All right, there you have it. Thank you so much for Nerimo for showing up for this particular program, and thank you so much for your insights and for your message to Kenyans at large.
Thank you.
We do this again next week, perhaps?
Absolutely.
All right, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. I'm Richard Mwenja. Have a good day.